Imagine being surrounded by explosions, bullets, and cries of pain. Your comrades are falling one after another, but you don't have a weapon. Yet, instead of running away, you run toward the danger. This is the true story of a man who saved 75 lives in a single night without firing a shot. His name was Desmond Doss, and what he did on a cliff called Hacksaw Ridge will forever change your idea of heroism. Lynchburg, Virginia, February 7, 1919. Desmond Thomas Doss is born into a family marked by hardship. His father, William, a World War I veteran, suffered from post-traumatic stress and alcoholism. But it was his mother, Bertha, a devout Seventh-day Adventist, who shaped Desmond's soul with the values of faith and the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Two traumatic events forever changed his view of the world. During a fight, he nearly killed his brother Harold. Then he witnessed his father, in the grip of a psychotic episode, pointing a gun at his mother. These images burned into his mind like the biblical story of Cain and Abel. From that moment on, Desmond swore to himself he would never touch a weapon again. After finishing 8th grade, he found work as a carpenter to help support his family during the Great Depression. At 21, he became a deacon in his church. But history was about to test that unwavering faith in unimaginable ways. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor. America enters the war. Desmond worked at the Newport News shipyard, a job that guaranteed him an exemption. He could have stayed safe, but patriotism burned in his chest. The solution? Become a combat medic. On April 1, 1942, he enlisted voluntarily. He asked Dorothy Pauline Scott to marry him, and she accepted. But what awaited him at boot camp was hell. His fellow soldiers mocked him, called him a coward. At night, while he prayed, they threw boots at him. They beat him brutally, but Desmond never gave in. Captain Glover tried to discharge him from the Army for mental illness. Sergeant Howell subjected him to exhausting work details. They denied him leave and rest. He was arrested for insubordination just before completing training. Dorothy rushed to see him in jail, begging him to plead guilty. But Desmond refused. At the trial, his father saved the situation with a letter citing an act of Congress. Religious pacifism was protected. The charges were dropped. On August 17, 1942, he married Dorothy. A few days later, he left for the Pacific. His comrades considered him useless. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Before Hacksaw Ridge, Desmond proved his worth at Guam and in the Philippines in 1944. As bullets whistled by, he ran toward the wounded. He bandaged wounds under enemy fire, administered plasma as explosions shook the earth. The Japanese targeted medics as priority objectives, but Desmond never stopped. His comrades changed their minds, seeing the man who risked his life to save them without asking for anything in return. He received 2 Bronze Star medals for valor, but the real test was coming. It was called Okinawa. April 1945. The Battle of Okinawa was the last major American offensive in the Pacific. At its center was a 400-foot escarpment called Maida Escarpment, nicknamed Hacksaw Ridge for its sharp slope. It was a vertical rock wall, fortified by the Japanese with tunnels and bunkers. On April 29th, Desmond's 77th Division received orders to take it. Using cargo nets, the soldiers climbed while bullets rained down from above. Company A was decimated. On May 2nd, Desmond's Company B made it to the top. For days, the slaughter was relentless. Enemy artillery pounded without pause. Desmond ran from one wounded man to another, bandaging, injecting morphine, whispering comfort. On May 5th, the order to retreat rang out. Everyone began to descend. Everyone except one. Desmond looked at about 75 men too injured to move. And he said, no, he would not leave them behind. While everyone retreated, Desmond remained alone on the ridge. 75 wounded men lay on the battlefield. Snipers and grenades everywhere, but he had made his choice. He would locate a wounded man, bandage him, drag him to the edge of the escarpment, and lower him down with a rope using a special knot. Then he'd pull up the rope and start again. "Lord, help me get one more," he prayed each time. A Japanese grenade landed at his feet. The explosion threw him into the air, tearing open his legs. He treated himself. As he crawled toward safety, a sniper shot him in the arm, shattering the bone. But when the litter bearers arrived, he ordered them to take another more seriously wounded man first. He stayed there bleeding, waiting his turn. When they loaded him onto a stretcher, an enemy counterattack forced the bearers to seek cover. Seeing another wounded soldier, Desmond rolled off the stretcher and ordered the medics to treat the other man first. He used a rifle stock as a splint for his fractured arm and crawled 300 yards to the aid station. Before dawn, he had saved all 75 men. The American soldiers below the escarpment were speechless, seeing the wounded descend one after another. That unarmed medic had done the impossible. Captain Glover, who had tried to discharge him, approached with tears in his eyes. "Your men won't attack without you. They believe God is with you." The morning of May 6th was Saturday, Desmond's sacred day. After praying, he decided to join his comrades. The final assault began with renewed spirit. During a Japanese ambush, Desmond saved Glover by kicking away grenades. One exploded too close, 17 pieces of shrapnel embedded in his body. But Hacksaw Ridge was American. On May 21st, he was evacuated aboard the USS Mercy. The wounds were devastating, but he was alive. And so were 75 men who would have died without him. October 1945, the White House. President Truman placed the Medal of Honor around his neck, the highest American military decoration. Only 431 men out of 16 million received it. Desmond was the first conscientious objector. Truman said, "I consider this a greater honor than being president." When asked what he thought, Desmond replied, "I just followed the golden rule from Matthew 7:12. He didn't speak of heroism. He had simply done what was right." His former comrades now called him the bravest man who ever lived, Captain Glover said. "The irony was that he ended up saving my life. In addition to the Medal of Honor, he received 2 Bronze Stars, the Purple Heart, and other decorations, all without ever firing a shot. The war ended, but the consequences lasted decades. During the journey home, they removed the bullet from his arm. In 1946, they discovered he had contracted tuberculosis at Okinawa. For 5.5 years, he went in and out of hospitals. Doctors removed 1 lung and 5 ribs. The damage to his arm prevented him from working as a carpenter. But Desmond never complained. In 1946, Dorothy gave birth to Desmond Jr., who followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a combat medic and paramedic. Desmond devoted himself to witnessing his faith and inspiring young people. In 1991, Dorothy died in an accident while he was driving her to the hospital. The man who saved 75 lives couldn't save the love of his life. In 1993, he remarried Frances, who stayed by his side until the end. Despite everything, he lived to 87, surviving with only 1 lung. On March 23, 2006, Desmond passed away at his home in Piedmont, Alabama. He was buried with full military honors at Chattanooga National Cemetery. In 2016, Mel Gibson directed Hacksaw Ridge, starring Andrew Garfield. The film won 2 Oscars, bringing his story to millions of people worldwide. Lynchburg dedicated a school to him. His childhood home is a shelter for veterans. An army clinic in Hawaii bears his name. Streets and monuments honor him in 3 states. At the Medal of Honor Centennial in 1962, the recipients chose him to represent them all with President Kennedy. But Desmond's greatest legacy isn't the medals or the films. It's proof that you can be brave without being violent, that you can serve without compromising your principles. That true strength lies in lives saved, not lives taken. 75 men returned home because of him. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of descendants exist today because Desmond refused to come down from that ridge. Being a medic was the most gratifying job there is, he said. In a world that measures strength by violence, Desmond reminds us that true greatness is measured in lives saved. And that is an eternal lesson. If this story touched your heart, help me spread Desmond Doss's legacy. Subscribe to the channel to discover other stories of forgotten heroes who changed the world. Hit the notification bell and share this video with someone who needs inspiration. Because stories like Desmond's remind us that humanity, faith, and courage can still win. See you in the next video.